What is wrong with AAA games recently? Jedi Survivor has been released, but it was a disastrous launch for PC. I was one of the few lucky ones who could play it without any problems, and we will discuss if it's a good game overall, but people are having huge performance issues even with high-end PCs. After the success of Jedi Fallen Order, most of us were waiting for Jedi Survivor with high hopes. The things we saw in the trailers were exciting and fun, but it looks like people are struggling to play the game even with high-end PCs, and you can easily see that on Metacritic. Unfortunately, these performance issues became almost normal for every AAA game recently. I don't know the reason, I've never been in a AAA game development process, but things are getting out of hand. It became almost impossible to find a game without major issues in the beginning. And after downloading hundreds of gigabytes, now we also have to download extra 20-30 gigabytes for patches and wait for the game you pay full price to get fixed. I hope studios will fix things on their end, and they should be more open to postpone games. I mean, I know there are financial concerns, but in the long term this can affect the pre-order numbers and sales too. Anyway, this is not the main thing we're gonna talk about in this video, so let's talk about if Jedi Survivor can actually do what it promised. Jedi Survivor welcomes us with a nice opening. We start on Coruscant, and I quite like walking on the streets of Coruscant. In this part, the game successfully introduce us to the basics of the game, such as basic combat, platforming, and using force abilities. After that, the game takes us to Kobo, where we will spend more time. Star Wars Jedi Survivor doesn't have one big area, but multiple areas of different sizes, and you travel between them. A couple of them, such as Kobo, can be described as an open world, but others are mostly wide corridors you follow. And I actually don't have a problem with that. They still give different paths to discover and find different loot, and also combat becomes more intense because of more enemies in a relatively smaller area. These planets are mostly for the missions in the main story, so we can say they kept the same design as in Jedi Fallen Order. Kobo is our main planet. It is bigger than the others and offers more things to explore. Especially in the beginning, I felt a bit lost because it's a big map that looks like you can go wherever you want, but soon you realize that you can't. Since the game has Metroidvania elements, we don't have the skills to explore everywhere at the start, and sometimes have to return to places to use our newly acquired skills. And there are tons of these kind of initially unreachable places on Kobo. So after acquiring a new ability, you want to go back to the areas you can discover more, but I think Respawn Entertainment should have changed the way that we see the map. It's a 3D hologram that our droid shows us. It was alright in Jedi Fallen Order and it fits the vibe, but the planets we visit in Jedi Fallen Order were smaller. Jedi Survivor has bigger areas, and I didn't find the map useful even though you can leave markers on it. When they showed it in the trailer, I thought it could be easier, but I was wrong. But besides the map, I think there is a bigger problem about encouraging players to explore more, which is the reward system. Throughout your gameplay, you'll open many chests, and every single time it's going to be cosmetic loot. Either different colors for your weapons, or the droid, or new outfits and new colors for them. There are different things you can get as a reward too, such as extra stims which refill your health bar, or improvements for your force bar and so on, but most of the time it will be cosmetic loot. And after some point you don't feel like it's worth exploring more. Excitement of the unknown goes away because you actually know what you'll find. Also, to reach loot you need to parkour or solve puzzles, and I should say, even though parkour is fun and well designed in general, the puzzles get boring really fast. You'll face puzzles all the time through the main and side contents, and unfortunately in the end every puzzle ends up carrying a ball from a place which doesn't have a door or a gap at first. Then you create a door and you put the ball on a device. So in my opinion, they should have either had fewer puzzles, or they could have added more different types of puzzles to make things more interesting, because the rewards I get from exploring are already not fulfilling anyway. I mean, I know Jedi Survivor is not the kind of game where you can expect to find more powerful lightsaber or more resistant armor in a chest, and this is not what I mean, but I wish there could be different things to find too, because as I mentioned in another video, it was the same way in Jedi Fallen Order. In the previous game it was alright because the game was also relatively shorter, but Jedi Survivor takes around 30 hours to beat if you want to explore and do some side quests, so for a game that can take 30 hours there is not enough variety of loot. Also, as you can remember, there are some animals we can tame to use as mounts. Well, I was expecting to use these mounts to cover larger distances, but actually most of the time I use them to just reach higher ground or avoid a big gap between two platforms. So in the end I felt like they were not much different than how we use pull or push force abilities to create an opening or reach a room. Don't get me wrong though, I don't say that like it's a bad thing. I was just expecting to use them more for actual travel, but maybe it's just me that didn't use them that much. Maybe so far I sounded a bit negative in general, but there are plenty of things the game did a lot better too. And one of them is combat action. The first game did a good job with combat too, but since in Jedi Survivor we have more different types of enemies, more stances, more force abilities to use, and dismemberment which you can turn on or off in the menu, I guess it is safe to say that the game was improved in this department development a lot. Especially after Jedi Fallen Order, you actually feel like you control a more experienced Jedi thanks to the flow in the combat, cool finishes, using mind tricks to confuse enemies to fight for you, and being able to use different stances. Stances are important to mention because they create variety. Don't expect them to have huge skill trees and improvements, but I didn't feel the lack of something here. There are 5 stances and you can choose 2 of them every time you reach a meditation point or workbench. I mostly prefer dual wield stance and crossguard stance. Dual wield stance offers faster attacks and with unique ability you can counter-attack your enemies. On the other hand, crossguard stance is something we are familiar with from other games such as Claymore or Great Sword. It offers slower attacks but of course deals more damage and helps us to break enemies defenses easily. The other stances are single sword, blasted lightsaber combination and double bladed staff stance. Each has unique features but my least favorite was blasted lightsaber combination. I didn't like its animations and the way you attack with it. In overall it's nice to have option because if you get bored with one stance you can change it to another to make things more interesting. But I wish this stance choosing would require a more tactical approach rather than just getting bored and changing it. I was playing the game in hard difficulty mode and I didn't need to change my stances according to the enemies, but maybe on veteran difficulty option, which is the hardest one, you might need to have a more tactical approach. There are also perks in the game. They give you passive boosts such as earning more XP from defeated enemies, or when you use the time slow skill you can also replenish some health, etc. They don't offer a deep gameplay change but are still useful to have. You can either buy them on Kobo or gain them when you explore or sometimes after a boss fight. By the way, most mini bosses and main bosses have similar patterns amongst themselves. Maybe it can be acceptable for mini bosses, but for the main bosses I would like to have different patterns. However, they can be still challenging and it's alright for the game's genre. Like it wouldn't be fair to compare Jedi Survivor to Elden Ring or other Dark Souls games. Another good thing this game does is give you a broad variety of customization options. But since every loot is about customization, that's pretty normal I guess. Even though I mostly play with a man bun and a huge beard on my Calcastis, there are many other options and you can give your Jedi whatever look you want. Of course there could be more options, but I found the things we have to be plenty. In the previous game, customization was so limited, but here you can change Cal's outfits and their colors and his hair and facial hair. Also, there are more options for our lightsaber, blast and droid too. Not only can change their material, color and components, you can also decide on how old and used they should look. Overall, I like the customization. It's nice that every player can have their own unique style. Also, it's been a big question from Star Wars fans if we can use a red lightsaber. The answer is yes, we can, but in New Game Plus. So you have to finish the game first on any difficulty, then you can pick a red colored lightsaber or the one called party lightsaber which changes colors on every attack. But if you ask me if the game has replayability, I would say no. I don't think I would play the game again, at least not right after finishing it once. Maybe after a year or something, if I miss swinging a lightsaber then probably I would play, but otherwise I don't think so. The main reason is, in my opinion, for a game to be worth playing again, there must be some good quality of side content too. Except the main missions and exploring, there is bounty hunting, puzzle rooms, challenges, rumors and a mini game called Holotactics. Bounty hunting is something we are familiar with from The Mandalorian. The galaxy is full of bounty hunters who hope to claim Cal's bounty. When you find and defeat them, you earn bounty pugs, which you can exchange for blaster customization. They are mini bosses, so you can find relatively more challenging enemies, and that's why I like the bounty hunting. Even though after some point their attack patterns look very similar, it still offers a nice challenge. Puzzle rooms are called Jedi meditation chambers. You deal with some puzzles where you carry balls or cubes around to reach a reward. We already talked about the puzzles, so I'm not going to explain it again, but these chambers are the places you can solve more puzzles if you want to. Also, in the map, you'll find some challenges called force tiers. When you interact with it, it takes you to another space to engage in a challenge. Each force tier will challenge your skills in different ways. In one of them, you'll have to parkour, and in another one, you'll have to beat multiple strong enemies with only one lightsaber stance. On the other hand, rumors can be found either when you just explore or when you talk to an NPC. When you want to investigate a rumor, the game leads you to an area rather than the exact point like in other missions or side contents. You have to explore the area to find a way to complete the rumor quest and reach the reward. I was hoping that talking to NPCs would lead to different side stories too, but that's not the case. But still, it provides a motivation to explore more. And the last important side content is the Holotactics. The game doesn't give you this mini game directly. You have to investigate a rumor first to unlock the Holotactics. Holotactics is a holographic strategy based minigame. When you kill a new enemy enemy in the game, BD1 scans them, and when you scan an enemy, it will be added to Holotactics. In the minigame, you are allocated points to purchase units that fight your opponent's units. I quite enjoyed the Holotactics because it's a simple but fun minigame and reminded me of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I would recommend checking it out. There's also gardening and collecting fish, but these are only for achievements, so I won't go into much detail, but basically you find seeds during your explorations and you can plant them later. And for the aquarium, you find a certain NPC in different places through your journeys, and every time you speak to him, he'll tell his stories and catch a fish to add to the aquarium. So there's plenty of side content for your first playthrough, but it's not enticing enough to want to replay. Star Wars Jedi Survivor took me around 30 hours to beat, with some exploration, side quests and the main quests. I can say I was lucky to play the game without any major bug or FPS drops. And I might have sounded most negative about the game, but I actually enjoyed it. I think the most important aspect of the game is immersion in the Star Wars universe and the fantasy of being a Jedi. Both of these things are done well in Jedi Survivor because of the larger and more detailed maps than Jedi Fallen Order, greater customization options and the better combat experience. I didn't talk about the story because I didn't want to give any spoilers, but it was alright too. It doesn't offer something special, but at least it hangs together and tries to surprise you in its own way. There are things that Respawn Entertainment should improve in the third game, but still I'm happy that we are having these kind of decent games in Star Wars universe. Nevertheless, I should say, if you haven't bought and played the game, it might be wise to wait a bit so they can fix the game and you can have a better experience. Thank you so much if you stayed till the end. I tried to share my experience and I would like to hear your opinion about the game or the video in the comments. Also, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. Take care and see you in the next video.